Welcome to Stakelbeck Tonight. I'm Erick Stakelbeck, and it is clearly a new day for America. Great things are happening in our country right now. And folks, no one knows that better than Erick Trump. He's an international business leader, entrepreneur, and a leader in the America First movement. He also just so happens to be the son of the 47th president of the United States, Donald Trump. Erick joined me for an exclusive interview to break down the great things happening in our country, what comes next, and why he puts faith, family, and freedom first. Our wide-ranging conversation starts now.
We have turned a new page in Washington, D.C., and we are going to take advantage of the opportunity that God has given us.
We have a strong new leader back in the White House, and it makes a big difference because everybody around the world is seeing that, and everyone around the country is applauding it.
And our golden age has just begun.
And we are joined now by the Executive Vice President of the Trump Organization, Erick Trump. Erick, great to see you. Hey, it seems we're seeing the art of the deal play out in real time right now. Erick, in just the past few days alone, we've seen the Houthis in Yemen back down and announce they're going to stop attacking U.S. shipping in the Red Sea. We've seen Ukraine agree to that minerals deal with the United States. And we've seen Mark Carney, the new Canadian Prime Minister, all of a sudden striking a much different tone in his sit down with your father at the Oval Office and saying, look, I want to do business with the United States. It seems none of this happens without your father back in office. Erick, talk about how he has really reset the whole global scene.
Well, that's what happens when you have somebody in this country that actually has backbone, Erick. I mean, it's very simple. This is what the American people wanted. They wanted a fighter. They wanted somebody who could go out there and represent America's best interests. They wanted a person who was willing to punch back. They wanted a person who actually showed up at work. And everybody knows that Joe Biden didn't show up at work, right? I mean, I've told you this before, but I have a lot of friends in the White House, and I can tell you there's a very marked difference between, January 19th and January 21st. In terms of action. Half the employees in that building didn't even show up for work. They were still working from home when my father took over. And so, listen, my father's a fighter. My father's always wanted to put America first. His mantra has always been, listen, I want to be the coach of the Super Bowl winning team. I don't want to come in second. I don't want to come in third. America has to win. We have to be the best at what we do every single day. And you're seeing it around the world. We're not getting used and abused. We're taking in billions and billions of dollars worth of tariffs. We're putting our industry that has been robbed out of our country. We're putting that again, first again. You're seeing, tensions around the world starting to ease. It seems like, there's peace to be had, sometime in the near future between obviously Russia and Ukraine. Hopefully that will come to an end. A totally senseless war that would never happen if my father was in office in the first place. Iran will not get a nuclear weapon, and hopefully those talks continue to go well. You're seeing interest rates falling. You're seeing inflation falling, unlike it's ever fallen before. I think we're going to have one of the greatest markets in the history of the country, and I think America is going to, most importantly of all, America is respected again because we have toughness and we have a tough leader. They're not going to allow the Houthis to attack our warships or other maritime ships that want to go up through the Red Sea. As you said, they surrendered yesterday. I mean, a lot of great things are happening, and we're 104 days into this election, and my father's done more 100 days than Joe Biden did in his entire term in office. And I'm incredibly proud of him. And this is exactly what America voted for.
Erick, it's peace through strength in action. Also, what I love is President Trump has all the leverage and he's not afraid to use it. You mentioned trade and tariffs. Why is it so important to reset global trade in America's favor and establish fair trade? And why should the American people have some patience on this?
Yeah. Well, it's also amazing to see so many people that push back against the fair trade. Erick, I can tell you, and all your viewers, man, I was a guy who's traveled to every state in this country. I've done hundreds and hundreds of thousands of travel miles on campaign trails. I can't tell you how many factories I've been in the United States that were shut down. They had a chain link fence around them. The parking lots were overgrown with weeds. Beautiful manufacturing that used to take place there just disappeared, right? I mean, somebody went in with sweatshop labor, stole American jobs, put businesses out of business while our politicians were totally asleep because they've never visited half these towns. They've never visited half these places, and just destroyed communities, destroyed school systems, destroyed churches, destroyed, kind of the fabric of the essence of heartland America, where we used to produce better than anybody in the world. And my father's been in those same buildings, and he's not going to allow it to happen anymore. And the irony is, so much of that those products were taken over by China, and now China sells that very product made much more poorly, right, to a much lower quality, back to the very people that it put out of business, right? And my father goes, we're not going to allow this to happen anymore. We're not going to have these Chinese container ships sailing into the port of LA, so kind of weighed down that there's about an inch of water, be an inch of air between kind of the water and the top of the gunnel. And then as they're leaving our ports, you see the propellers out of the water because they're so light. They're not sending anything back to the other side of the globe. I mean, they're not buying our Harley Davidsons. They're not buying our Ford trucks. They're not buying our products. They're dumping all of their stuff into this country, and they're not taking anything from us, all while, again, putting our businesses, kind of out of work. And, one more thing that they're doing, so many of these countries are actually subsidizing companies to lose money sending products to America, knowing that if they do that, they can vastly undercut our prices over here. Whirlpool, KitchenAid is a great example. They were trying to put those companies out of business. The governments were subsidizing, their products from their countries, so they could be sold into America at a loss, so they could get the lion's share of market share. And once they bankrupt our companies, congratulations. You know what they're going to do? They're going to jump prices by 200% because there's no other alternative American option. And so it's national security, it's pride of the American worker, it's protection of the American worker, and it's protection of the American consumer. And it's about time you have a businessman who actually understands this game, understands how badly we've been ripped off. The fact that we have $36 trillion worth of debt. It can't continue. We won't have a nation anymore. And I'm so happy. It's why I fought so hard on that campaign trail every single day. And it's why, I thank God every day that Donald Trump is behind that resolute desk.
Erick, he just returned from a whirlwind trip to the Middle East. Hey, some exciting things happening in the world's most volatile and chaotic region. A new day there, new opportunities for America, and perhaps the Abraham Accords are back on the table as well. What did you see during your trip to the Middle East?
Well, I've been going over to the Middle East for almost 20 years. I've been going over to Dubai. We have a beautiful golf course over there. I'm building an unbelievable hotel there as we speak, and we have other projects in the region, Oman and Saudi, and the region is incredible. And there's I think a very kind of mistaken perception of the Middle East from a lot of people here in the country, especially kind of the developed Middle East. I'll tell you right now, walking through Dubai, you're substantially safer than walking through London, right? It's not even close. Their love of America, their love of safety of the world, their love of Donald Trump is unlike anything that you've ever seen before. Those places, the Dubais, the Abu Dhabis, they thrive based on one thing, right? And that's, safety of their population and commercial activity and strong relationships, frankly, with the West. And I can tell you, they're not into the nonsense that's happening in other countries. They're not into Houthi shooting missiles, and they're not into Iran attacking Israel. They want safety, they want prosperity, and they want to be able to grow a great region of the world. And I think that's a beautiful thing for humanity. I think it's a beautiful thing for America. But, I'll tell you, and I know all these countries extremely well. I work in the vast majority of them, and I'm on a plane a couple hundred days a year. I think they've honestly become better allies, and I'll probably take criticism for saying this, than many of the European countries that have really abused this country for so long. They want strong partnerships with America. They want strong trade with America. They want strong business relationships with America. They encourage Americans to come over and invest. And that's very different than most of Europe, which takes a very highbrow approach, very, very proud of what, I'm doing and the Trump organization is doing in that part of the world.
Yeah, Erick, truly, I've traveled throughout the region as well, and I was really struck during the Biden years. It was a gloomy feeling there in the UAE, Bahrain, other places I visited, and they all said, we need President Trump back, someone we can do business with, and who, again, will stand strong against that Iranian axis in the region. And the Abraham Accords, obviously, back on the table. Exciting times, Erick, in the Middle East for the first time in a long time. Hey, you're traveling around the world. You are a very busy man as Executive Vice President of the Trump Organization. You've got a beautiful young family. Your wife, Laura, hosting a great show now weekly on Fox News. 2 young kids. But I love, Erick, when you talk about how you juggle it all. And faith and family are first and foremost for you. Tell us how you put that first in your life despite a very hectic schedule.
I always say it's maybe the greatest challenge. Certainly the family side. Obviously, what I do is being on a plane. If I'm not on a plane, I'm not really accomplishing anything. And and so I travel an incredible amount. My wife's an absolute saint, and I think she's been used to a husband that's absentee a couple days a week, at least a couple days a week. And I think I always joke that FaceTime is the greatest invention ever because every single night, no matter where I am around the world, and about 9 p.m. I call my family if I'm not at home, right? And I'm spending as much time as possible at home now. But if I'm not at home, and we do the Pledge of Allegiance, we do the Lord's Prayer, and then we have these two little family prayers that we do. And that's kind of like the way that my kids kind of turn off at night. They know after that, there's no more getting up, there's no more running around the house, there's no more lights on, there's no more games. So, faith is a very important thing to us. It's an important thing to me, personally. It's an incredibly important thing for our nation. Our nation was founded on faith. 90% of the problems that we have in this nation could be cured by faith, by belief, by family. I'm lucky to have the greatest wife in the world. She's a phenomenal person. She was being laughed at by the Democrats a year and a half ago when my father made her the co-chair of the RNC. Ha ha ha! What does Laura Trump know about politics? And it was a lot of fun to watch her, with a beautiful smile, poised, articulate, in a kind way with again, that great smile on her face, win all 7 of the battleground states and win the popular vote. Never underestimate Laura Trump. She's an incredible person. And then, as to my kids, I think instilling real value in them, both from a faith standpoint and also I think from a work standpoint. It's one of the things my father and mother always did for me. They got us working very, very young, learned us real skills, taught us the value of a dollar. Never gave us unnecessary junk that otherwise, material items that otherwise, spoiled you. If we wanted a fishing rod, if we wanted a bike, congratulations, go work for it and then go buy it yourself. And so, I'm trying to instill that in my children as hard as it can be at times, based on who we are. But obviously faith, is first and foremost. And I can tell you at a very young age, my kids could do the Lord's Prayer, which isn't the easiest if you're 2 years old, but they could do it from a very young age.
Yeah, old school American values. They never age. And Eric, about a minute left before the break, then we'll bring you right back. I'd say your father is probably the most faith-friendly president we've ever seen. We've got a new White House faith office. This is incredible, Eric. The day of prayer last week in the Rose Garden, also an incredible event. Talk about the role faith is playing in this new administration, why that's great for the American people.
Listen, faith was under attack. Faith was under attack unlike this country has ever seen before. You got to remember the last administration, the Obama administration was trying to take, God out of the Pledge of Allegiance, one nation under God out of the U.S. currency. They were trying to take it out of our classrooms. They were trying to take it out of our schools. They were trying to take it out of our lives. And my father came back and said, listen, this will never happen. And he fought for prayer unlike anybody else ever has. He's fought for freedom of religion unlike anybody ever has. Again, religion founded this country and, guides us all. And I really believe on Butler on that horrible day. I really believe that faith saves life. And there's a lot of signs that I've seen over the years, a lot of very big signs I've seen over the years. And faith is a very big part of who he is and who we are.
Eric, Bitcoin and crypto. Now, a lot of people watching may be intimidated. They may not know a lot about it, but you say that Bitcoin could transform the financial system. Tell us what we need to know about that.
Well, I told my whole life I've been building hotels, golf courses, residential buildings, commercial buildings, retail outlets. I mean, it's what I know. I was put on construction sites at 11 years old, and that's the world we knew. And it wasn't until we started getting absolutely demonized and ostracized until kind of the woke cancel culture came around that they big banks start canceling us, and I realized actually how fragile the financial system was. And here comes kind of crypto. The same people who were attacking us were attacking everybody in crypto, and so kind of the enemy of your enemy is actually your kind of friend. And so we started linking up with the crypto community, and I have to say, I've never been more impressed by the growth of the community. I've never been more enthusiastic about the future ahead, how it changes finance. Bitcoin is everything that real estate is not, and real estate is everything that Bitcoin is not. So they're almost the greatest hedge against each other. But Bitcoin's an asset. It's an asset with a limited supply. It's an asset that everybody around the world wants. It's an asset that has instant liquidity, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's the greatest store of value. It can be transferred anywhere in the world. You look at hard assets, and clearly we're a hard asset company, but you don't have any liquidity. It could take you a year and a half to sell a hotel. It can't be transferred from one city to the next if you have political corruption or if you have demographics playing a certain area. And so it ends up being the greatest hedge. But the growth of Bitcoin has been explosive. It's about 60% year over year over the last decade. There's been no asset that's performed nearly as well. And I can tell you all around the world, people are gobbling up as much as they can of it. So I believe in Bitcoin. I believe in that as digital gold. At the same time, I really believe in crypto and changing finance. Crypto is the future of finance. Bitcoin is digital gold. And I'm really kind of proud to be putting a lot of my life into this new financial frontier.
Yeah. Folks, you heard it here first from Erick Trump. Hey, a lot of what you're saying, Erick, a lot of your father's policies are just plain common sense. You mentioned government corruption a minute ago. That includes Doge. Can you talk about it just so people know? I think people may underestimate just how effective Doge has been in shedding light on corruption and draining the swamp. It's been amazing these past few months what Doge has uncovered, right?
Well, as a guy who runs a business, it's infuriating to see because you understand how these things happen in some cases, and you understand the corruption that's happening on the other side, right? I mean, we have 3.4 million people over the age of 120 on Social Security, and then you have Democrats coming out and fighting. How dare you? How dare you cut these programs? It's somebody who doesn't need Social Security is getting wealthy based on that program, and they don't even want to look into it, right? Somebody's committing fraud on real people who need Social Security. And the government won't do a thing about it until my father and obviously Elon, came along. You see all these examples. I mean, funding tens of millions of dollars for transgender mice studies. You see these things where, you have antivirus software for some agency. There's 6,000 people who work in the agency, but the contract is for 100,000 people or 80,000 people for antivirus. So, you have 94,000 subscriptions on a monthly basis that are being paid for by the American taxpayer that aren't actually being utilized. And that's because of, incompetence and probably in many cases, absolute corruption. And they save so much money, billions and billions and billions of dollars. There's no accountability in government until now where there finally is accountability. And just remember to everybody out there watching, this is an annuity. It's not just a one-time thing. It's not like they just cut 160 billion. It's 160 billion and much more to come, obviously, this year. But that's 160 next year and 160 the next year. We're going to bankrupt our country if we keep running it the way that Joe Biden did. And I think Doge might go down in history as maybe the most meaningful effort in the savior of this nation.
Yeah. Amen, Erick. Well said. Hey, I look at President Trump's cabinet. This is historic. This is an all-star team. Talk about the deep bench in this administration, how the future looks very bright. And the left, you just mentioned the leadership, if you can call it that, under Joe Biden. The left right now in complete disarray, it seems. I think the future looks bright for the Republican Party, no doubt. But the other side, not so much.
Eric, I was speaking to my father, a little while ago, and I go, it's so cool what you're doing. You're throwing so much lead into the air that the other side literally can't catch it. Like they don't know how to kind of counter program. The first administration is, there's Russia investigation. We had nothing to do with Russia, but it's Russia. Then it's impeachment. This. He's working on so many fronts. He's working so quickly that they literally don't know how to counteract it. And then you combine that with the fact that people just fundamentally distrust the mainstream media in this country. They distrust them. So like anything that they do try and throw against the wall isn't working. And it's one of the reasons that he's as effective as he is. And, 2020 really hurt for us because I really don't believe we lost it. And I think there's probably a lot of people watching this right now that don't believe the math. The math doesn't make any sense to anybody, it just doesn't.
Yeah.
I have to say it was maybe a blessing in disguise. Maybe that was God's plan because it allowed my father to not only have the executive branch, but obviously have the Senate, have Congress, and then put in a cabinet that is just unbelievable. Every single one of them are in lockstep with his policies. In 2016, we didn't know the good ones. We didn't know the bad ones. He had a lot of great ones, right? It was one of the most transformational, administrations in history. There's no question about it. Now we know everybody's colors. We know who was there during the good times, the bad times, who was disloyal, who wasn't, who was actually America first, who wasn't. And honestly, I don't think you could have had more positive things happen. So sometimes things happen for a reason. Sometimes I think that's God's plan. And I have to say, kind of watching what's happening right now, I don't think it could have happened this way. Call it in 2021. And again, I've never been more proud that he's just reprogrammed the minds of everybody in this country to realize how badly we were losing, how badly we were being ripped off, and how great America can really be, and our unlimited potential. And so we're going to have the greatest 4 years of prosperity. And I love him to death. He's my best friend in the world, and a phenomenal guy, a phenomenal leader, and I think somebody who's truly saving this nation.
Love it. Eric, great stuff all around, and agreed 100%. This was God's timing, 2024. Now is the time, and it's a new day for sure. Eric, you're a big part of that, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us, Eric. We hope to do it again soon. Stakelbeck Tonight, my all-new nightly series on current events through a bold biblical lens. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload, and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget to share your thoughts, insights, and comments below. Thanks for watching, and God bless.